New Brat, Post Brat, Know Your Hybrids, and the Springsteen Center is cool. Welcome to the Unlimited Supply Podcast, your daily music business TLDR in your ear, powered by Brute Force Research, and brought to you by Nodisc, helping music technology and finance companies navigate the music industry, and partnered with Digital Music News. It's July 27th, 2026. I'm Lars Murray. It's Monday, where we talk about what happened over the weekend and what is on deck for this week. Over the weekend, well, there's a new number one album and a first-time number one artist over at Billboard. That would be Gracie Abrams, whose Daughter from Hell topped the charts in its first week. Gracie, of course, is the daughter, maybe not from hell, of Hollywood director J.J. Abrams. Rumors that she shortened the title from the original Daughter from Hell with an unlimited safety net and deep network of Hollywood connections are unconfirmed. And for obvious reasons, she couldn't call it Brat. Nonetheless, congrats to Gracie and her label Interscope on the number one. Meanwhile, Charli XCX dropped her long-awaited follow-up to the actual Brat. It's called Music, Fashion, Film, and Charli leaned hard into TikTok for the launch with a massive promo aimed at her 5 million followers there. Over at Digital Music News, Ashley King asked whether this is a tectonic shift in album drop strategy. We'll be watching to see whether OG Brat can knock off Nepo Brat when the chart numbers come in next week. And speaking of album drop strategy, an article I put aside for the weekend last week was a deep dive collaborative report issued by Splice and Chartmetric. Over at Digital Music News, Paul Resnikoff did a rather detailed report on the report. The idea behind the report was to see how tracking production coming out of Splice might reveal actual listening and engagement results, tracked, of course, via Chartmetric. I'm not sure if there's ever been a report like this, a nose-to-tail accounting of how producer activity and output might affect listening trends. After all, until Splice and maybe SoundCloud, there was really no way to track producers at scale. Anyway, it came away with a few pretty interesting findings. One unsurprising development is that hybrid genres like funk, Brazilian funk, and Mexican corridos tumbados are eating into the global market share of pop. And if you don't know what those are, well, we'd all better be boning up pretty fast. Know your hybrids, people. The most interesting thing in the report to me was the look it provided into the slicing and dicing of genres in the current market. Hybrid genres are popping up every day, fragmenting the traditional boundaries between genres at both the global and local levels. This in turn is driving a trend that might be counterintuitive in a globalized market, which is that localized hybrid genres like Amapiano and Corridos Tumbados, while they might be growing globally, actually tend to intensify listening in their home markets, creating not just genre fragmentation, but geographical fragmentation, and also potentially very profitable niches. It'll be interesting to see how this affects A&R decisions at both indie and major labels. The other big takeaway, which is not particularly surprising, but that the study affirms, is that the two largest streaming platforms behave very differently from each other. In particular, YouTube has emerged as a legitimately top funnel service, whereas Spotify tends to be more for the captured fans at the bottom of the funnel. Whether this is because Spotify discovery is not very good, or whether it's just because YouTube has a massive global footprint of all kinds of people and content, isn't yet clear, but it should be a major factor in how industry stakeholders, labels, managers, and artists allocate their time and resources. If YouTube is a leading indicator and Spotify is a trailing indicator, maybe, just maybe, that laser focus on Spotify needs a little course adjustment. There's a lot more detail in Paul's story. It's our must-read of the week over at Digital Music News. Looking at the week ahead, as we head into the traditional August music industry vacation season, big drops like Gracie and Charli are going to keep at least the worker bees of the industry with their noses to the grindstone in the month of August. But the end of July and the beginning of August also brings another thing: earnings season. A couple of big Q2 earnings reports are coming out on Thursday. Sirius XM, which will be interesting as always. Managed decline is a fascinating process. And on the same day, we get UMG's Q2 earnings report, which should be very solid unless some greater megatrend like inflation or war or a shift in the streaming economy happens, though that doesn't seem likely quite yet. And we sure hope it doesn't happen. As goes Universal, so goes the industry. For its part, Sony has its earnings call on Friday, which will ruin some summer Fridays and delay some Hamptons cocktails as people tease out Sony music from the larger Sony report. Unless, of course, the numbers are good, in which case everything can wait until Monday. Undoubtedly, some Lollapalooza enjoyment will also be interrupted too. That's because Lolla happens this weekend. A few music folks are celebrating birthdays this week. Like me, you're all Leos, and somehow we still all get along. Speaking of vacations, the music vacation queen Darby Moeller is a birthday girl this week, as is digital goddess and TuneCore US head Nicki Shamel, ace marketer Jay Schumer making the trains run on time over at Island, digital sage, walker of the dance music walk at Jen Mozenter of Patreon, publishing sage Charlie Datry, Warner catalog maestro Jesse Ervin, and my wise and wonderful former partner in crime, Kathy Baker, over at YouTube Music. Happy birthday, everybody. Oh, and one more thing, going back to over the weekend, I had the distinct pleasure of visiting the Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music, located at Monmouth University. I was tipped off by old friend, last week birthday boy, and new grandpa Greg Linn. Definitely a must-see destination for anybody passing through the North Jersey coast. It's not just a Bruce museum, it's a music museum with a lot of interesting and interactive U.S. music history on display. But if you're a Bruce fan like me, it is Mecca. A hat tip to our occasional Friday finance correspondent, Jim Player of the Year Turner, for making that happen and for making sure I got to talk to Bob Santelli, who runs the place, and luckily for me was on duty Saturday morning. In addition to running the center, Bob is also notable in my life for having co-authored a book called The Big Beat with E Street Band drummer Max Weinberg, which opened my eyes to the craft of drumming. So thanks, Bob, and we'll be back to the Springsteen Center, which is highly recommended to anybody listening to this pod. Support for Unlimited Supply is provided by you, our listeners. If you want to join the few, the proud, the elite supporters of Unlimited Supply and receive your Unlimited Supply trucker hat as a symbol of your industry sophistication, there's a link in the show notes and on our website. If you like what you hear, please hit that follow button wherever you get your pods. I live for your praise and encouragement, but it really helps if you share that praise as a rating and or a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify, and tell a friend or three. And you can also follow us on Substack, which may be the best way to follow us and help us out. Links are in the show notes, but you can also visit unlimitedsupplypod.com to sign up for our newsletter, to tell us what you think about the show, to suggest feature ideas, to feed us info, to feed us lunch, to call us out on our dubious assertions, and to tell us what we're missing out on. I'm Lars Murray, and remember, in this business, no conflict means no interest.